Welcome everyone, Arcblight here, and I've got another build guide for you. In this one, I'm doing a Fire Sorcerer who's using Disintegrate as his main attack. As always, the build planner will be down in the description below, as well as a loot filter that's used from the build tool planner. If any of these videos helped you out, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you want to see more content in the future. Also, if you want to catch me live, feel free to go over to twitch.tv/Arcblight. Let's get into it. Alright, so starting off with the sorcerer here, over on the dummy, if I use my Disintegrate, I'll show you the damage numbers that I'm getting. So I've got the 2-beam fire setup going on. And as you can see, the damage gets very, very high. And with this build, to make it function properly, you're going to need Ignivar's Head and also Gambler's Fallacy. Without Gambler's Fallacy, you're going to do significantly less damage, but no worries, this is a unique that you can get through the story mode with any character. All you have to do is go turn in the quest for it. With Ignivar's, you'll just have to get lucky with the drop on this, and it's a pretty common drop, so you shouldn't have to try too hard to get it, but there's plenty of places you can try and farm to get this if you want to. So starting off with the skills that I'm using, first I have Disintegrate, and then I have Flame Ward, Focus, Teleport, and Arcane Ascendance. You can kind of mix match whatever you like here. This is just the combination that I've tried out that seems to work out the best for me. With boss fights in this build, you can run out of mana pretty easily, so having focus set up is pretty helpful with that. And then Arcane Ascendance isn't required at all, but it just helps get a little bit extra damage out there, especially in a boss fight. So starting off with Disintegrate, I have 22 points in that because of my Relic. You can do this if you want. It helps get a little bit more damage out there and versatility with your main attack, so I recommend it, but it's not required. With Disintegrate, I went with 3 in Magnify to get the Ignite chance so that I could get up and convert all of the lightning damage into fire. Now this build can probably work really, really well with lightning as well. Just depends on how you want to build your character. Then I went over and I did 1 into Extension because this range right here, just getting 1 point in this, seems to help a lot with those enemies that stand at a range and attack you. This is about as far away as they'll typically stand from you while they're attacking, so you can still hit them while standing. Then I put 5 in Galvanized Defense, so I get less damage taken while I'm channeling this. 1 in Stored Power to get an extra damage boost. It'll slow down the casting rate, but it's a very minimal amount. Then I put 5 in Searing Plasma to up the damage a lot. 1 in Twin Beam, so I get 2 beams, each doing their own damage. And then 1 in Subvention, so that I get mana every time I kill enemies. This right here will help you a lot, especially in like arenas or with a lot of enemies around. You getting a lot of kills, which happens really quickly, will keep your mana sustained pretty well off. But like I said, when you get into a boss fight, that's going to be a bit of a struggle. With Flame Ward, I decided to make it a little bit damaging, but also defensive. So I put 3 in Dilation to make it last longer. 5 in Infusion, so it increases my fire damage while I have that on, since I have Disintegrate as fire. 5 in Through Flames to get more flat fire damage. 1 in Fire Aura, so that my Fire Aura deals more damage over time to surrounding enemies. And then 1 in Eye of Flame. That helps out just a little bit because you're kind of standing still while you're doing Disintegrate, so that helps damage enemies that are around you. Then I went over and I put 2 in Energize so that I get some ward from it, but mainly so I could get over to Prismatic Buffer to get some more elemental damage taken reduction. Then over in Focus, I was mainly trying to get as much mana as I possibly could when I use this, because I don't want to be sitting there for very long using this ability. So I went over and I put 4 in Revelation to get a burst of ward and mana while I use this. 2 in Iron Stance just to get a little bit more defense while I'm using it. 1 in Resolute Stance so that I could get over and put 5 in Burning Aura. 3 in Nerve Center just so I could have a little bit more damage while I'm doing this. And then I put 4 in Mana Flooded to get more mana regen while I'm using it. And then 1 in Desperate Meditation so that I get increased mana regen per missing mana, because usually you're using this when you're totally out of mana or pretty close. Then with Teleport, you can set this up however you like. What I did is I went over, I put 4 in Ether Barrier to get some ward whenever I use it. Then I put 3 in Out of Body so that my health will actually turn into ward, so I get even more. And then I put 2 in Elemental Affinity so I get increased elemental damage, so it'll help out with the fire damage that I'm doing. 1 in Out of Mind so that I get ward gain per point of intelligence, and I have a decent amount of intelligence with the build, so that helps out a little bit. 2 in Crystalline Passage to give me some cold resistant armor. 1 in Time Dilation so I get a stat buff duration. 1 in Mana Tunnel. 5 in Tunnel Finder, so this helps with the cooldown recovery for Teleport, so you can use it more often. And then 1 in Rock Phase, just so it'll help with a little bit of the stuns. stuns with the build can be a little frustrating, so anything that helps with that, I decided to go in for. Then with Arcane Ascendance, you can do this however you want, but what I decided to do is I put 3 in Power Sprint, so I get haste after the Ascendance expires, 5 in Rebuff, so I get Ward whenever it starts, 5 in Higher Plane, so I get increased spell damage, 5 in Power Overload, so I get even more spell damage, and then 1 in Unstable Energy, so I get cast speed per second. Then I went down, I put 1 in Acuity, so this will make it so it doesn't drain mana as I'm using it, but it'll affect 4 spells. But where you're using just Disintegrate and you're basically holding it down, you get to do this for the full duration of it instead of trying to cast 4 different spells. But if you do cast, say, Teleport or something like that, this will help with that. So then over to the passive trees. In the Mage tree, I put 8 in Scholar to get more health and mana, and I put 8 in Arcanist so that I get more resistances but also more intelligence. I'm trying to stack more mana so I hit that 300 mark, which will help with a lot of the idols that you'll be using. I put 10 in Knowledge of Destruction. You want to get as much critical strike chance as you possibly can with this build. It's the most important stat. And then over in Sorcerer, I put 8 in Calculated Destruction for more crit chance, 8 in Brainstorm so I get more spell damage and mana regen to help sustainability, 8 in Pyromancer for more fire damage, 5 in Lavamancer so I get fire penetration and fire damage leech, which helps a lot, 10 in Arcane Insight, 1 in Elixir of Knowledge. Those will help out a lot with getting more damage and a little bit of ward. 8 in Crackling Precision. You get a lot more critical strike chance with this, and it's doubled for lightning skills, which makes me believe that if you switch this over to lightning, you'll probably get a boost in damage, but I don't know if it's so much that you need to go lightning. I just tried it out with fire and it's doing pretty well. 5 in Arcane Obliteration, so I get spell critical multiplier. 8 in Elemental Ascendance, so I get more elemental resistances and elemental damage. 5 in Archmage, which will help with the adaptive spell damage +5. That's a flat value, and if you hit over 200 maximum mana, it's doubled, which is definitely handy. Then in Spellblade, I've recently been adding more points into Elemental Affinity. This will help with my elemental resistances and my elemental damage, so then on my gear, I won't need as much elemental resistances stacked, and I can switch it over to health or something for more survivability. And as I keep going, I'm definitely going to add a few more points into that, but this is kind of a build in progress, though it's doing really, really well so far. As far as gear, you basically want to stack as much spell crit and flat crit as you possibly can, because with Disintegrate, it doesn't crit. And then when you have Ignivar's Head, the main thing from this is Disintegrate deals more damage equal to your spell crit chance. So the more that you stack that, the more flat damage it's basically going to do. And then with Gambler's Fallacy, the trick to this is it has plus 100% critical strike chance if you have not recently dealt a critical strike. And where Disintegrate never crits, you always have plus 100% of that, which just goes right into your raw damage. So with the helmet, I was using Calamity for a while, but it actually seems to be a little bit better if I go with this and I have Spell Crit instead. And then I also threw on some health from channeling, so that'll help with survivability. What I'm trying to do is if I can get a legendary Calamity that has Spell Crit, that'll probably be the winning ticket for me. But we'll see as time goes on. With the armor, I just got more Spell Crit, and then I added adaptive spell damage while channeling to give more of the flat damage. With the wand, I went Spell Crit and flat crit. Anything else, the secondary stats, whatever helps your build with resistances or health is what you want to go for. With the rings, I went for the crit-based rings and then added more crit and then elemental damage. I went elemental damage because I'm thinking later I might test out the lightning and see what that does. With the belt, I went with fire damage and elemental damage over time. I put all my resistances into other gears so that I could have the hybrid health on this and then the regular health buff. And then I went with another critical ring. Again, just stack critical and damage and then whatever resistances and health that you need. With the relic, I went with the one that had the mana spent as ward so that you get a little bit more sustainability and survivability with that. And I went with the +2 to Disintegrate to help get more skill points with that. And then also added some crit to it as well. And with the boots, I went with Vitality for more health, hybrid health, and then movement speed and the resistances I was lacking. And then with the gloves, I also went with the increased critical strike base and then threw on some more crit and then whatever else helped out my build. As far as with your idols, it's whatever you get lucky with really and whatever helps your build out. So I've been stacking health and crit. And then also I have a little bit of fire damage thrown in there. 52 ward granted when casting Flame Ward and 20% of mana spent gained as ward, just for a little bit more of survivability with that. and then increased ignite effect and health, and so on. So whatever ones you find that pretty much add to the build will help you out. But again, biggest thing is go for as much crit as you possibly can, because that's going to increase the flat damage of your Disintegrate, and I'll have gameplay of all of this in action at the end of the video. As far as blessings, I haven't gotten all of them filled out. The main one that I'm shooting for is to shred fire resistances from the Spirits of Fire monolith. Beyond that, whatever else helps your build, just go for it. If you need to stack resistances, you can. If you need to stack crit avoidance, you can. And yeah, basically whatever helps with that. And yeah, that pretty much brings this build guide to a close. If you have any feedback or you want a specific build made up, feel free to let me know. Drop it below in the comments. If you want to keep in touch, feel free to join the Discord. I post a lot of the builds into the Discord, as long as the loot filters and everything. But yeah, I'll leave you with some gameplay, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks for watching.